All right, so this segment is about the Sunni and the Shia. Sunni and Shia are both sects of Islam. As in Christianity, you have your Catholics, you have your Lutherans, different denominations. Well, to put it in Western terms, then Sunni and Shia are different denominations of Islam. And your responsibility for this slide deck is knowing some of the differences, a little bit of the history, and why there's going to be a split in the belief. All right, it all starts with Abraham. You guys should know Abraham from Christianity or from Judaism. All three monotheistic religions trace their lineage to Abraham, the patriarch of the monotheistic faiths. And on the Western face are the Western monotheistic states, trace Abraham through his son Isaac. So Judaism, and then Christianity is an offshoot of Judaism. Believe in Isaac and his story, and as the son of Abraham. In Islam, they believe in his other son Ishmael, who he had a son with one of his maid servants. Ishmael is for the Islamic side. That's where they trace their belief system into, or trace it back to Abraham. All right, here's the real basics. The Shia believe only descendants of Muhammad can be caliphs. Well, they would call or leader of the faith, they would call their leader an imam. The Sunni would use the term caliph. They do not have descendants. They don't believe that they have to be a descendant of Muhammad in order to be a leader of the faith. All right, so they both believe there's only one God, Allah. They both believe in the Quran as the holy book, and they both believe in the 5 pillars of Islam. All right, I've spent 4 years of my life in the Middle East. I have met Sunni and Shia Muslims. I know that there is friction between the beliefs, but that's not always at a personal level. Sometimes it's countries. You know, there's predominantly 3 or 4 countries that are majority of Shia. The vast majority of Islam is Sunni. So there are some conflicts as far as how the states run their business. But before we get into that, you should have a little bit of background on Muhammad. We had some of this before under the religion slide deck, but this will be a recap. I didn't really focus on Muhammad, knowing that we were going to get more when we get here to the Middle East. So for testing purposes, you should know that Muhammad was born in Mecca, which is in modern-day Saudi Arabia. At the time, of course, it's not called Saudi Arabia. The lines that you see on the map on the right are only there to just give you modern context of that region. At the time of Muhammad, that is just the Arabian Peninsula, hence the term Arab. And most of the people of that region then are referred to as Arabic, and their language is referred to as Arabic. Those that trace their descendancy to the Arabian Peninsula, not anything to do with Saudi Arabia. That's a story for later on in life. All right, he was born in a prosperous trading clan. Will travel extensively throughout the Arabian Peninsula. You should know the name Khadijah, which you can see on the right-hand side of this slide. As you're facing it, Muhammad is going to marry. Khadijah was will be instrumental in his path, but at the time she's older. She is known by his family, and she will eventually marry Muhammad. All right. Again, he's going to be known for his negotiating skills and as a relatively prosperous businessman in the region. All right, then things change. He starts to have visions. He starts to have conversations in his travels. And there's a period of his time in his life when he goes out on his own into this cave in Hira and has conversations. He has these conversations with the Archangel Gabriel. And the reason that Khadijah is so important in the Islamic faith is because she convinces him that he's not nuts, because he believes that he's going crazy. He's got these voices, and she convinces him to write it down and to pay attention to it and take it serious. So he does. And the writings, of course, will become the Quran. All right. Prior to Muhammad, the Arab tribes were basically polytheistic, meaning they had dozens, if not hundreds, if not thousands of deities. All right. And now Muhammad is going to arrive on the scene. And after his conversations, he's going to start preaching about one God, and one God being Allah, monotheism. So that talk is going to upset some of these merchants because they're making profits off of selling religious idolatry to the locals. And suddenly, Muhammad shows up on the scene and says, "Hey, there's a new faith, um, but it's only with one God. And here, let me tell you about our God, Allah." All right, some of the key points to the faith that he is going to start touting are basically the five pillars. So, very similar to the Ten Commandments in the Christian faith, you got the five pillars. Now, if you look on the screen, you can see the Arabic or name or Shahada, Salat, Zakat, Saum, and Hajj. All right, those are the Arabic terms for the five pillars. But here's the definitions. And ultimately, you should probably know the definitions. What are the five pillars? And if you look at the five pillars, there's nothing in there about jihad or holy war or killing the infidel. They are all very peaceful and require some amount of sacrifice, all right, to help others. So keep that in mind. All right. So these merchants are going to feel threatened, and the message of Muhammad is not going to take hold in Mecca. He's going to be forced to flee. And he flees to a city called Yathrib. You probably should know that. Technically, it's called the Hijra as they flee Mecca to Yathrib. Now, Yathrib is no longer called Yathrib. That's why you don't see it on the map, but you see instead circled the city Medina. But originally, it was called Yathrib or Yathrib. However, Muhammad is going to rename Yathrib Medina, which literally means city, but it'll become known as the city of the Prophet. As a matter of fact, Muhammad is buried, entombed in Medina. While in Medina, the belief Islam is going to thrive. He took several hundred of his followers to Yathrib, converted it to Medina, and Islam basically takes root. Now, over the years, Muhammad is going to want to retake his birthplace. So he returns to Mecca and is able to take control of Mecca. He, of course, dies shortly after. And after his death, really, is where there is the split in the Islamic faith. So this is the way it looked after his death in 632. On the left-hand side, as you're facing the screen, you see Mecca and Medina and the green. And then you see after 12 years what Islam, how much it spreads after his death. All right, so the split. The split occurs over who is going to replace Muhammad as basically the leader of the faith. Now, there's a couple of different terms that you'll hear. One is caliph, One is Imam. You'll hear those terms interchangeably throughout Islam. In the case of the Sunni, they believe that any candidate to replace or lead the faith can be any devout Muslim. And that's the Sunni. The Shia, on the other hand, believe that it has to be a little bit more specific. That if they're going to be the leader of the faith, they should have some connection to Muhammad, and therefore should be in the bloodline or the lineage of Muhammad. And that's the Shia. The singular for Shia is the Shiite. So the Shiite Muslims believe that the leader of the faith after Muhammad has to be of the bloodline. All right, this kind of shows you a layout of the Middle East, and now the extension of the Middle East into Africa is referred to as the Maghreb. So the Maghreb region is basically the Middle East extended west. And you see Iraq, Iran, Bahrain are three countries that are predominantly Shia. The vast majority of the Islamic world, however, is Sunni. All right, another statistical slide. Again, three governments that are predominantly Shia: Iran, Iraq. Well, they throw Syria in there, Bahrain. Syria, Bashir al-Assad is the leader of Syria. He is a version of Shia called an Alawite. There are different sects underneath Sunni and Shia Muslim, just like there are in Christianity, or denominations, I guess would be a better term. All right, this is today what the Muslim world looks like. Of course, they don't show the United States. The United States, that's fastest growing religion right now is Islam. All right, and here's some commonalities. Now, I'm not going to ask you to memorize commonalities, but you have this slide deck to look it over. Remember, there's going to be some type of a assessment next week on the topic of the Middle East, and this is always a good opportunity or question to ponder the differences between the Sunni and the Shia. So here's commonalities. Both believe in the five pillars. Both are monotheists. Both stress the importance of helping the poor. Friday is their holy day. Prohibits the pictures of Muhammad. Muhammad is not somebody to be worshipped. He is a prophet, but he is not Allah. They do both believe that Jesus is a prophet. He is not the Son of God. He is not Muhammad, but he is a very important religious figure. Both believe in a second coming of Jesus. Matter of fact, the group ISIS, and some Shia and Sunni groups believe, but I'll stay specifically with ISIS. ISIS believes that as they are whittled down to the last 100 to 200 of their fervent followers, that Jesus will appear and take them to the promised land. Let's see. We both believe that Christians and Jews are people of the book. We all have connections to Abraham and therefore should be respected. Both believe that Jesus didn't die on the cross, but he was saved by Allah, and therefore plays a little more significant role or a significant role in their belief. All right, the holy book is the Quran and should be in Arabic to be interpreted. And then here's some differences. The vast size difference, the Sunni is definitely the larger of the two. There's some names in here that you should know. All right, so let me give you four names that you should know. After Muhammad's death, there's going to be four individuals that become the four, what they would call the rightly guided caliphs or caliphs. So you have the first one, Abu Bakr. You see in that second bullet under Sunni, Abu Bakr. All right, there's one. Another name you should know is Omar, O-M-A-R. He comes after Abu Bakr. After Omar, there's a guy by the name of Othman, O-T-H-M-A-N. And then after Othman is Ali, and you see Ali over on the right. All right, so those first three, the Sunnis believe, were legitimate caliphs or leaders of the faith. The Shia only believe, or only start to believe, after Ali, because Ali is technically a descendant, um, a cousin of Muhammad, so a direct bloodline. There's the split. The Shia also believe the imams, or the leaders now of the faith, starting with Ali, are divinely guided, so they were chosen or appointed by Allah. All right, and the Sunni only believe that Muhammad was divinely guided, and the rest are just leaders of the faith. And then there's the commemoration of of the assassination of Hussein, uh, which is called the Ashura. And Hussein, the son of Ali, is going to be beheaded in a battle of Karbala. And Karbala is a city in Iraq. And for many years in Iraq, the Shia were not allowed to participate in the Ashura because their leader was a guy by the name of Saddam Hussein. And Saddam Hussein happened to be a Sunni. And the vast majority of the population of Iraq is Shia, but it was controlled by its government was controlled by the Sunni. And Saddam, for 30 years, would not allow the Shia to commemorate Ashura. Well, that changed in 2004 when the Americans were in Iraq. They held elections in 2004, 2005, but the Americans, when they were in control and had ousted Saddam Hussein, allowed the Shia Muslims to worship or to celebrate the Ashura for the first time in a long time. And it's continued to this day. I think it takes place around April. That could vary based on their calendar. I think their calendar might be more of a lunar calendar. All right, and this kind of shows you, some images. The Ashura, because of Hussein's beheading, the men of the Shia faith, when they go on the Ashura pilgrimage, want to suffer as Hussein suffered. So they will flog themselves or they will cut themselves. You'll see a bunch of them walking in to Karbala, the tomb area of Karbala, where Hussein is buried, cutting their heads with large knives or flogging themselves to suffer as Ali suffered or Hussein suffered. All right, so imams in the Shia side, the Sunni don't necessarily assign a term, a leader, a name for the leader. You hear in Shia, the Shia, or at least in some of the, not the Shia, in some of the Sunni world, for instance, ISIS. ISIS is a Sunni version of a denomination of Islam, and they were trying to establish a caliphate. So Abu Bakr al-Bakr or al-Baghdadi was a caliph in their version or their belief system. So that was a Sunni, still is, a Sunni denomination that was under al-Baghdadi, and ISIS wanted to establish a caliphate. So this religious state, basically. Of course, Baghdadi was killed under President Trump's watch. I'd have to look to see who replaced al-Baghdadi. I don't know if that even has happened, but anyway, so there is a separation as far as who leads their religions. All right, that'll do for this portion. This basically was supposed to be some of the primary differences between the Sunni and the Shia, why it was created, what's the little bit of the history. Remember, there's going to be some type of a summative assessment next week, and I'm relatively confident that there will be a question or two around this topic. All right, that'll be the end of this portion.